The last of the assignments that we're doing in the vector section are going to be inspired by spring and upcoming holidays. Whether or not you celebrate Easter, you know you've seen a lot of things out in the world around this time of year that have bunnies and, decorated eggs and so forth in them. We may actually use the word spring instead in our design, but we're going to essentially come up with a version of this that has some colorful patterned eggs, some ears, a mouth, nose, teeth, whiskers, and some text in it using Gravit Designer. I'm not 100% sure of what the final version is going to look like yet, and I will, of course, have that up as a sample when we're done, but just know that that is the basic inspiration behind the assignment and that this is what we're going to be working toward, and you'll understand partially where some of the shape primitive elements come in for something that is a bit more loose than the assignments that we've done up to this point. We're going to start with some shape primitives. We're also going to do some of these that start from a free-handed image or what have you. I may open these back up again later, but for now I'm going to scoot the Easter Bunny bit off to the side, and I'm going to move my eggs off to the side as well. If you think about the shape primitives, you'll probably realize that the ellipse is going to be the one that gets us the closest to an egg, and so we're absolutely going to be starting our Easter eggs, or our decorated eggs if you prefer, from that shape. So I have an ellipse on screen for the first time today. I think I didn't want an actual circle, I wanted an elliptical shape. Ellipses are obviously related to circles. All circles are ellipses, but not all ellipses are circles. No. Yeah. Because a circle has it has consistent radii all the way around, and an ellipse has a different width than it does height, and that's the difference that you're thinking about here. So what we need to get from ellipse to egg is not a lot, but we do start out with a tallish ellipse. We're going to select the object. We're going to go to our modify menu. We're going to go down to path, and we're going to do the conversion that takes us into an editable object, and that's what we have to have first of all. The difference in an ellipse and an egg shape is that one end of an egg is narrower than the other. And so that's what we have to do, is we have to narrow one end of this elliptical shape and potentially slightly widen the other end. And that's a little bit of where some of this is up to interpretation, but that's more eggy than it was previously. And the center point is also not exact in this case. So we have a slightly irregular ellipse / egg shape that we've come up with here. And that's going to be the first of our eggs. If you remember the sample image, one of them had stripes, one of them had polka dots, and one of them had sort of zigzag dots happening. And I'm going to go with a similar concept here. I'm going to use my same egg shape for each one of my eggs. I may modify it slightly, but there's no reason to repeat work when it is unnecessary. So I'm going to make a couple of copies of that. I'm going to bring my first one up. The one that we were looking at as inspiration was pink. So I'm going to go with a bright color. It can be slightly toward the pastel side if you wish. But it needs to have some, spring color to it. And then from here, I'm going to start to do the decorating. So to decorate, I want polka dots. Polka dots are ellipses, more specifically often circles, but they can be circular or elliptical, and they're going to be of a variety of different sizes because we want these to be different. So you can draw lots of different dots, or you can alt drag to create them and then scale them. Either option is fine. Just know that you need some variety of size, and that often the easiest way of doing that is to perhaps edit one of the shapes that you've already got. So now I have some size variety, and I could just create extra copies of these as necessary to fill this up. Now, if you're in a situation, as I am, where you want a dot that hangs off the edge of the object, how can you do that? There's a couple of ways. One of the ways that we're going to do this, and this is one of the suggestions I want to specifically demo, involves needing to have an extra copy of your original egg object. So I'm going to move that guy downward, and I now have the dot that I want to hang off the edge, and I have the egg shape that I want to use essentially for the cropping of that one. So if you come over to this section of the palette, we haven't really done it a lot. It's the create the compound shape option. We have a subtract, an intersect, and a difference. What I really want of this dot is the intersection, which is where the two pieces cross over. But I lose both the original dot and the original object, the big egg, if I do that. And that's why I needed a copy of the egg. So I now have the cropped bit that I got from the intersection option. I'm going to pick a delightful mint green color for that. I'm going to pull my egg back up here, and I now have a dot that is cropped right at the edge because I used a matching object to do it with. So if you do want to do that, just know that it does require some extra work to make it happen, but you can. I'm going to add my additional dots. I could color them off or on the egg object. I might have one more of these that I allow to be sort of chopped. But the good news is that sometimes you don't need a lot of that. So if I don't really feel like doing it right now, which I do not, I don't have to. And maybe I'll stick him. All right, so those are the dots. I definitely want them to be different colors to match up with what I was seeing in the original. You can pick from the color picker. You can pick and mix a little further, but definitely, probably, I don't know, 4 different colored dots, and then I'll mix and match them as necessary to get all the different ones that I want. I need a pink. I keep not finding a pink that I like. It's really pinky purple. And something bluish would be good. I'm getting a weird halo effect, and it may simply be on my end, and it's because the blue and the orange are close complements, and you can get either a light or a dark edge sometimes with that, so it is something at least to be aware of. And I think from here I'm just going to pick based on colors I've already got. The trick with this is just to remember that you need to not have more shapes selected at once than you intended to, or you will change the color of multiple objects, perhaps unintentionally. And I guess that should be the turquoise color. All right, so I now have theoretically my first egg. I've got a couple things that I want to do with this one, and it may add a step or two that may not immediately seem obvious to you. I want a thick stroke that goes around all the eggs like what was happening in my sample image. So I'm going to drag that one back over. Because I have at least one polka dot that hangs off the edge, it can interfere with the stroke that I want to put on there unless I do one extra step. The extra step is to create yet another copy of this egg. The copy is going to be the one I put the stroke on, and I want to show you why. Because if I just depend on the original object, and I'm going to go with a dark orange on here, and I'm going to increase it to about 6. Where the polka dot crosses over the stroke, it looks weird. So the solution here is to leave the original egg object alone, to take my new egg object, set its fill effectively to 0, and to put a border on it in the color that I want, at the weight that I want, and layer that over the top. And that will take care of the issue that I was having with the edge of the polka dotted object, assuming that that guy is where it needs to be in the stack, and apparently it's not. He's not playing nice. All right, so let's see what that That looks like a 10. And that polka dot is still not playing nice. So this guy needs to come up in the stack. And the other one needs to go... Yay, there we go. All right, so it's on top of the polka dot now. I'm getting the look I need to overall, and I now have one completed polka dotted egg for this assignment. So I'm going to select all of those elements. I'm going to group them, and I can always scale it later if I need to, but that gives me one completed egg. I'm going to do similar things to get stripes and zigzaggy bits for the other two eggs, and then that element will be complete. I'm going to stop and restart the video because there's stuff happening in my house, and then we'll see where else we go in terms of the overall shaping.